Down to business.
Down to business. So now it's time for our final award.
Okay.
So Katie, if you have the honors.
So it's my great pleasure this evening to introduce Mr. Jeff Bezos. His success as a technological entrepreneur is no secret to anyone in this room. But you may not know that his technological ingenuity manifested itself at an early age. Shocking. He rigged an electric alarm to keep his younger siblings from sneaking into his room. Let's look at the video.
From a very early age, Jeff Bezos has been delivering innovation. By the time he was 14, he wanted to be an astronaut or a physicist, tinkering on projects in the family garage. In 1986, Bezos had graduated from Princeton University, summa cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa, in electrical engineering and computer science. After graduating, he worked as a techie on Wall Street. In 1994, he founded Amazon.com with the mission of being Earth's most customer-centric company, offering low prices and fast delivery on millions of items, revolutionizing publishing and e-commerce in the process. In 1999, he was named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. Amazon created Kindle, a revolution in publishing and how we read today, and Amazon Web Services empowers companies and governments in over 190 countries around the world with the leading cloud computing infrastructure. Bezos is also the founder of the aerospace company Blue Origin, which is working to lower the cost and increase the safety of spaceflight so that humans can better continue exploring the solar system. And yes, back down to Earth, Amazon is bringing our drone friends into the fold for immediate home delivery of its myriad products. For his bold and relentless pursuit of innovation in the digital age and dedication to advancing science and technology wherever it's found, Liberty Science Center is proud to honor Jeff Bezos.
So it's my very great pleasure to present this to Jeff. We work in the same business. You know, we work for different companies, so to speak, but I think we have the same passion, and that is that this is the place we live, Spaceship Earth, all of us, but there's a place beyond that. People were meant to be there. It takes a lot to get there, and some people are doing more than their share to make sure we do. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Do you want me to hold that for you?
Thank you.
So Jeff and I agreed that we would have a conversation. So Jeff, you began Amazon 20 years ago selling books, and now you sell almost everything. So what is Amazon today? How do you describe it?
Well, you know, our mission has always been to be Earth's most customer-centric company. And by that I mean customer-obsessed instead of competitor-obsessed. And that is, sometimes we hire new employees at Amazon, and they come from a different kind of corporate culture, and they're a little bored because we don't wake up every morning with a competitive zeal to kill somebody else. We're more of explorers, and we kind of invent new ways, and we do wild things. A lot of them don't work. There's a lot of risk-taking, a lot of invention, and that is, it works for us. I think one of the good things about taking a customer-centric approach instead of a competitor-centric approach is that if you get ahead in a particular field of, or a particular arena, then you end up still being very motivated. Whereas if you're very competitor-focused, it's really difficult to stay motivated when you're number one in a particular arena. And so that has served us well, and we have three things today that I think are well-established businesses. We have Amazon Web Services, we have Amazon Prime, And we have our marketplace business where third-party sellers sell on Amazon. And we've got lots of other things we're working on and lots of ideas. They're little tiny seeds that we hope one day will grow into big trees. And we're having a ball.
It's great. So even though Amazon has emphasized sort of the speed of business, you also stress really long-term strategy. So what will Amazon look like 20 years from now?
It's one of those seeming contradictions that you can be very long-term oriented and really impatient at the same time. It's really hard to know what Amazon will look like 20 years from now because so many things change. You can't really base a strategy on a technology or who your competitors are, or those things change so quickly. But the one thing that I think you can really count on in any field of endeavor is your customers and what their needs are. And so those are the things, when you want to build a strategy, you want to think about what is going to be stable in time rather than what's going to be different. And I know that customers 20 years from now are still going to want low prices. I know they're still going to want fast delivery. I know they're still going to want vast selection. It's impossible for me to imagine a world 20 years from now where a customer comes up to me and says, Jeff, I love Amazon. I just wish your prices were a little higher. Or, I love Amazon. I just wish you delivered a little more slowly. Those things are impossible to imagine. And so you can actually build a real a set of activities, and you can pump energy into those things, and you can spin up the flywheel on all those things because you know you can count on them being true even 20 years from now.
So I've heard you describe innovation as a team sport. What kind of people do you want on your team?
Well, for innovation, you need a bunch of different kinds of people on a team. We need lots of operators on our team. So innovation comes in two major flavors. Everyday incremental innovation, and that's probably 70% of what we do, is just getting every little process a little bit better every day. That's so important. Any company that doesn't do that well is not going to succeed. And then there's this big, kind of white sheet innovation when you start something new. For that kind of innovation, in real invention, kind of clean sheet invention, you need people who, and this is very tricky, you need people who are experts in a certain domain area because the world is so complex today. It's really hard to invent something if you're not an expert, if you don't have the underlying tools at your disposal and know what's going on. You can't invent something in neurosurgery without knowing something about neurosurgery. It's just going to be very difficult because we're very advanced. And that's true in every field of endeavor. But to really be an inventor, you have to combine that expertise with the beginner's mind. You have to have a certain childlike ability to not be trapped by your expertise. And that fresh look, that beginner's mind, once you're an expert, is unbelievably hard to maintain. But great inventors are always looking. They have a certain divine discontent, and they may have seen something 1,000 times, and still it occurs to them that thing, even though they're accustomed to it, could be improved. And that's, you have to look for people like that. And I also think cultures support that. You can't, even if you're that kind of person, if you're in a culture that doesn't support failure, willingness to fail is critical for invention, willingness to be misunderstood for long periods of time. Most inventions don't really work that well in the beginning. They're clumsy, they're little toddlers, they're always falling and tripping. And so you have to have a culture in your organization that supports this kind of stumbling and wandering. Just because you're wandering doesn't mean you're lost. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind when you're trying to invent.
Did you dream that Amazon would be what it is today?
Oh, God, no. No, you have to picture, when I started Amazon, came up with the idea. I was living in New York City in 1994 and decided to move to Seattle to start this company. It was called Cadabra. It was really very small-scale thinking in a lot of ways. The company was incorporated. I was on my way to Seattle, and I wanted to hit the ground running. And so I called a friend who lived in Seattle. I didn't know Seattle very well, and said, "What can you recommend a lawyer to me to incorporate the company and open some bank accounts for the company and things like this?" Anyway, so he recommended his divorce attorney, And so it wasn't even a corporate attorney that started, that kind of incorporated Amazon. And I I was on the cell phone with him, and I said, what do you want the company? He said, what do you want the company to be called? I said, Cadabra. And he said, Cadaver? I was like, no, not Cadaver. And I knew, that's not going to work. That's a bad name. So there were a lot of things like that. We got I delivered all the packages to the post office myself in the early days, and there would be a big, semi in front of me. This would be the 10:30, the last drop off at the Seattle post office downtown, and there'd be, my Chevy Blazer, and then surrounded by these big trucks dropping off packages. I knew the UPS guy so well that he would let me in 5 minutes after they'd already closed, and I could get the last packages out the door. We were, it wasn't, my great vision at that time was that we might one day be big enough that we could afford a forklift. That's what I really wanted. So we just sort of put one foot in front of the other, and always trying to think big. To raise the first $1 million to get Amazon started, I had to go to 60 investors and got 22 people to say yes to give me $50,000 each. And most of them, their first question was, this is 1994, 1995, what's the internet? And so it was a very different time. It's hard to think back, because so much has happened over the last 20 years. But it's been unbelievably fun, and we've had so much planetary alignment. If you have an outcome like Amazon, you have to recognize that there's just a tremendous amount of luck involved. A lot of things went right. Some things we did wrong, and they still worked out right. And so that's something to keep in mind.
So I know you have many interests outside of Amazon. Tell me about the 10,000-year clock.
Well, I'm building a clock, a big clock. It's a kind of a monumental scale. It's inside a mountain in West Texas. It's the invention of a brilliant guy named Danny Hillis, had been thinking about it for a long time. And it's a symbol for long-term thinking. It's a clock that, you kind of think of it, sort of ticks once a day and, dongs once a century, and the cuckoo comes out once a millennium, that sort of thing. So and it keeps time. It's a completely mechanical clock. It's powered by thermal night-day cycles. It's a very sophisticated piece of mechanical machinery, and everything is tested to last 10,000 years. It keeps time for that long. And there's a lot of stuff to think through because it's synchronized at solar noon, and there could be, in 10,000 years, it turns out there could be 3-year periods where you have no sunlight at solar noon. Asteroids hit the Earth and change the axis of rotation of the Earth. We have to account for things like that. And so beyond just the normal precession of the Earth. So it's a very complicated mechanical piece of equipment. But what's the purpose, you would say? This is an odd thing to do, to spend any time on. And I think symbols are really important. Symbols can be very, very valuable. And we have, as a species, become so omnipotent on planet Earth that we're really going to have to start thinking longer term. It can, in a lot of different ways. And you can accomplish so much if you think long term that you can't if you think short term. So if I said to you, I want you to take this mission, I want you to solve world hunger in 5 years, you would rightly just turn down that mission. You would say, that's not possible, why would you even bother trying? But if I said to you, let's solve world hunger in 100 years, now that's actually much more tractable. Now you can think about it and you can say, okay, well, how do we create the preconditions that are necessary to solve world hunger? And so long-term thinking is a huge lever, and I think it gets harder to do as the speed of invention and civilization changes, in part because it sometimes doesn't make sense to think long-term if everything is changing so quickly. That's why, kind of taking that back to the customer needs that I was talking about before, you need to find those things that we know as a society that we'll want even 100 years from now, and then make sure that we go about working on those things. That's a lot of what this center is going to be about, is inspiring people to have the tools to help work on those kinds of important long-term opportunities that we as a species have. We've never been a better time to be alive. I mean, it's just incredible the amount of inspiration that the world generates for me, and I think for a lot of people. It's insane, the amount of change and invention and opportunity.
So you have a space company,
Yeah.
Blue Origin, and Wednesday was a really special day for
Yes.
you. Let's look at the tape and you can tell us what's going on. So if we could roll the video of what happened on Wednesday, Blue Origin.
Arming TTS. 5, 4, command start. 1, 0. And liftoff.
So that's a vertical takeoff, vertical landing vehicle with a 110,000 pound thrust, liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen engine. It carries 6 people up into suborbital space. It's unmanned at this point, uncrewed.
Max Q.
It can fly autonomously, so we can test the vehicle without risking pilots. You see here, this is a long-distance tracking camera. You can actually see, even though it's 58 miles up, you can see the crew capsule separate from the propulsion module. This is a camera from the crew capsule you're going to see here. So that's the propulsion module separating from the crew capsule. And now you can see the 2 little points there. One is the propulsion module, one is the crew capsule. The drogues come out for the crew capsule to land. And now you'll see the main parachutes come out after that. The drogues pull them out. And then it lands in the West Texas desert. And the goal for Blue Origin is to make space travel much less expensive and much safer, and to do that step by step, but quickly. And I don't know. I think we we humans, we need to go to Mars and to everywhere else. You know, we will never find a place in our solar system anyway, probably never anywhere, that is as beautiful and comfortable as Earth. We evolved here, we've co-evolved actually with this planet, and so it's kind of perfectly suited to us. But there is, as we continue to expand, we really need to go out into the solar system and not just go to one planet or 2 planets, but to go everywhere.
Do you think that space will become affordable for the average American in our lifetime?
God, I hope so. I mean, that would be the goal. It's a very challenging goal, but I don't think it's impossible. I mean, it would have, if you had gone back 50 years ago and looked at commercial air travel, it would have looked out of reach for most people. And now it seems it's pretty accessible to a very large segment of the population.
So Jeff, putting aside regulatory issues, are there any technical issues or obstacles to my getting my next pair of sneakers delivered by an Amazon drone?
With the drones, with respect to drone delivery, putting aside the regulatory obstacles is a little bit like asking Mrs. Lincoln, other than that, how was the play? So the regulatory obstacles are that's 9 out of 10 points. We have the tools that we need to do drone deliveries. The big breakthrough that's happened over the last 20 years is in machine intelligence, machine vision, and it's actually, having a drone do delivery to somebody's backyard as a machine vision problem is much, much simpler than, for example, a self-driving car for a whole bunch of reasons. So we'll get there. My guess is it probably won't be in the U.S. first. There'll be other countries that will end up with better or sooner, having the right regulations sooner. But we'll get there in this country as well.
Well, I hope the regulatory issues don't get in the way, but in case they do, we actually came up with a way that we think you should deliver packages. Can we look at the video?
I'm scared.
Undersea. There's less, air traffic there.
Well, it's a smaller customer set. I really did like Jill's idea the search for extraterrestrial customers. I think that's a very, I want to encourage Jill to continue her work. Thank you. That's very,
Jeff,
very good.
thank you so much.
My
for
pleasure.
joining
Thank
us.
you.
Let's give it up for Jeff Bezos.